Well, folks, the continent of Europe is ablaze as the world's fifth largest army continues its invasion of the country of Ukraine. For over 4 days, under the command of President Vladimir Putin, Russian soldiers have been attacking cities across Ukraine and targeting military targets and killing innocent civilians. As the Russian army encircles the capital of Kyiv, the Ukrainian people vow to fight, standing up against a tyrant while the rest of the world looks on. Welcome to the Closet Conservative Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Wright. Let's get started. Ladies and gentlemen, let it be known that the power of the human spirit is mighty. This week, the country of Ukraine has fought hard for its land and for its survival. Led by their President Zelensky, the Ukrainian people, young and old, everyday Nykolais to famous athletes alike, the Ukrainian people have taken to arms to tell the largest assembly of military force since World War II that their land and their freedom is not for the taking. Folks, many worldwide didn't give Ukraine a fighting chance. Heck, some around the world said that Russian forces would take the country in 24 to 48 hours, and yet here we are 4 days later, and the desire and war for freedom rage on. For all of you listening today, take notice and heed the global response of what is happening to Ukraine and its people. The West, led by the United States, has sold out another Eastern ally. The end of the Cold War saw Ukraine emerge as the third largest nuclear power of the time, thanks to the vast leftover arsenal of the Soviet Union. About 5,000 nuclear arms, long-range missiles that carried up to 10 thermonuclear warheads in secret underground locations. Heck, Ukraine had it all. And seemingly overnight, led by internal agreements spearheaded by countries like the United States, Ukraine gave them all up. The only country in history to do so. The promise from the U.S. and the West was, we will keep you safe from Russia. And now, we see the result of what happens when countries trust our weak, liberal leaders and us. This week, we have led the Ukrainian people to slaughter. And as they fight Russians in their streets, Joe Biden is playing let's make a deal with weak, ineffective sanctions that will have more detriment to our domestic economy and the Russian people than it will on Vladimir Putin. Folks, President Putin has a personal net worth of over $200 billion and sits on the world's 8th largest oil reserves. And to boot, the United States, even as these sanctions are introduced and his bodies lay dead in the streets of Kiev, continues to import roughly 10%, or over 500,000 barrels of oil from Russia every day. That's right, Putin is getting a payday from the United States thanks to Joe Biden and his Green New Deal buddies in Congress, who demolished our domestic output of oil and gas and made us wholly dependent on the Putins of the world. Let it be said that Vladimir Putin does not care about the financial security of his people. Heck, if 189,999 of the 190,000 soldiers in or near Ukraine perished as a result of this conquest, it wouldn't hesitate to claim a Russian victory. For you see, unlike Joe Biden, Vladimir Putin and his vision, while wrong and unjustified, is clear. This week, Ukrainian President Zelensky called on his countrymen and women to fight Russian forces from everywhere. The Ukrainian government handed out AK-47s and ammunition to anyone wishing to defend their homeland. You see, unlike liberals in the United States, the need for guns and ammo are real. They combat the dark forces of internal and foreign governments who wish to forfeit freedom. Let this be a wake-up call to citizens of the United States and for the rest of the world. Do not sacrifice your freedom. Do not give up the security of your land by forfeiting your weapons, for when the chips are down, you cannot depend on governments of the West and especially the United States, for protection. This week, many have stated that the Russian aggression is just the start of things to come, a possible prelude to World War III. In part, I agree. You see, Communist China is sitting in the background monitoring the advances of the Russian army and Vladimir Putin, but more importantly, the Western response. There is no doubt that the residents of Taiwan sit in doubt. Should the Chinese army invade their land, would the West help? Or, like in Ukraine, turn a blind eye to another nuclear power? But folks, I'm not advocating American soldiers in Ukraine fighting against Russian forces. No boots on the ground. No, that would surely lead to a global conflict, but instead to expose how America has lost its standing in the world. We are liars and traitors to our word to our allies. After the first Gulf War, we left a Kurdish people to slaughter under Saddam Hussein. In Afghanistan, we left those who fought and protected our forces to be killed by the Taliban. Now, we leave a defenseless country to be overrun and annihilated by Russia. And despite their sellout, unlike Joe Biden and his hiding in the basement, the Ukrainian people and their president choose to fight for their freedom. And may God be with them. But folks, let me be clear when I say that the United States has grown weak in 1 year, just 1 year under Joe Biden and his presidency. We all see that here at home, and so do Russia, China, and Iran. And if there ever was a bandwagon to take out the United States, these three countries would lead the charge. Perhaps that is Putin's real goal here, folks. Sure, he wants to reaffirm Russia and take back lands previously a part of the old Soviet Union. But make no mistake, today's war is drastically different than it was in World War II. Many more global movers and shakers as a result of global economies. Too much American dependence on dictatorial and oppressive regimes. And the scariest is too many madmen with nothing to lose and everything to prove, with itchy trigger fingers that could send a hellish display and dismay of nuclear arsenals that could leave America on her knees. This week, the Cold War returns to the world. Although Democrat by design in the 1950s, President Kennedy had the fortitude to stand up against the Soviets when nuclear weapons were 90 miles off America's shores. But now, flash forward 70 years to the weakest president in our nation's history. And that, ladies and gentlemen, could lead to our demise. That should be scary enough to anyone. You've been listening to the Closet Conservative Podcast.